Evening, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me and see me, and that technology, well, continues to work for us. Really, it's been a mighty 5 days effort. Has Operation Respond. So those of you who are watching on replay, welcome. It's been quite a week, but it's been good fun, and lots of information has been shared this week. So I'm really glad that the daft idea to run Operation Respond sort of came to fruition, really, because when you have these ideas, you're not really quite sure what it's going to look like if it was to happen. And then when you start reaching out to people and saying, would you like to be involved? You're then thinking, oh, will they forget? Will they turn up? Will they have done any slides? So all that sort of anxiety sort of lives with you. So I'm really glad how well it has gone. And I'm really, really, really glad to read today some of the wonderful comments that you've been posting about how you found the masterclasses, and the fact that you've been able to watch it on replay as well. I think I knew that was a masterstroke when I had it, to be fair, because having been on lots of these types of things myself, Zoom's fabulous, but you're always trying to find the link and faffing about, and then you've got to wait to let in and all that business, and recording and accessing a recording on Zoom can be even more of a faff. So I just thought that the best thing to do would be to pop it all in a pop-up Facebook group and see how we go, and then you can watch it wherever you can access Wi-Fi, really. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to get started. Obviously got no sidekick tonight, it's me. So I'm going to try and control the control panel as well as everything else. But again, as I've said every night this week, get your action points sheet downloaded from the file section of this pop-up Facebook group, and jot down any notes from anything this evening that you think, I'd like to take that away, or I'd like to go and have a think about that, because that's relevant to me and my childcare setting. So there's your actions to take away sheet. You must have that. And tonight I'm going to talk to you about, well, employment, as that's what we do here at Redwing Solutions. It made sense for me to be the employment section. I probably didn't think it through when I decided to be the last speaker of the week, but hey. So I've got some slides for you. I'm going to hopefully be able to share my screen with you now. Evening. Hello, Jane. Hello. I'm glad all of the command center, this stuff is working. I can see everything, which is always a worry when you're flying solo, isn't it? So employment. We this week we've had business on Monday, we've had management on Tuesday, we've had marketing on Wednesday, and we had leadership last night. So tonight is all about employment. And I just want to reiterate the overall objective for Operation Respond. And it was the idea, and it was a phrase that it was taught to me probably 5 years ago, that I should respond and not react. And I do not remember the context, otherwise I would tell you as to why somebody told me this phrase. But it's, how sometimes somebody tells you something and it really sticks, it really resonates with you. Well, that phrase, don't react, respond, really, really resonated with me. And I think when we've sort of prepared this idea of Operation Respond, and when I first started to talk to people about it, the idea that, this year we are being told is going to be a challenge for a multitude of reasons. And the idea that we should all gear ourselves up if we're smart, and not everybody is, so not every business will make it. But if we're wanting to be one of the ones that does make it in 2023, we've got to be prepared to respond, not react. And this, for me, is the real thing. And with employment, which is my bag, never a truer word was said. We don't want to be reacting. We want to be responding. Give an example. When somebody says something to you that you're thinking, oh, okay, not sure about what you just said. You don't, in the middle of the, I could think of the general office that I've worked in many an organisation, the open plan, multiple desk environment. You don't turn around and react. What you do is you ask that person perhaps if they could, be borrowed, as I would say, can I borrow you for 5 minutes? Can you come and have a chat with me? Yeah, because you need to respond. You don't want to react. reacting would create all sorts of HR issues you don't want to do. So employment for the final session of the week. Tonight, we're going to look about things that you need to consider so that if anything was to happen, you're in a position to respond rather than react. That's the plan. Okie dokie. So let's get started. So this is me. I am Imogen, otherwise known as Imo, 49 years old, not far off 50, just a few weeks away. I am from Essex. I do have a nearly 19-year-old. He was born 2 days after my birthday, so his birthday is just coming up. I only have one husband. I have multiple fish. We have multiple shrimp. The shrimps that haven't even got names because we just call them shrimps 1, 2, and 3. And the fish are all related because at some point we've had daddy fish, mummy fish, and therefore lots of baby fishes. But they're still very cool because they just look identical. So again, they have no names. And I do love my coffee. So this is our team. So you can see I wasn't around for Christmas jumper day, as you can see. So we've got my husband here in the corner, Frank, who's our HR consultant, Lizzie, our HR advisor, Shannon, who's getting married in 2024. In August, so we're already getting ready and excited for that. We've got our Sue and we've got Amy, who's back, and which of course means that we have Reggie, the office dog. So whilst we're delighted to see Amy back, we're really, really delighted to see the return of Reggie as well. So that's the team. So this idea, and I do like a bit of Sean Bean, this idea that winter is coming, this idea that the UK, if you listen to any news, if you listen to what's happening with strikes, with what's happening with industrial action on the rail, in the schools now, all of this thing, all we're being told is negative and misery, isn't it? So, you know, in our house, sky blues, if it's on, very, very miserable stuff. And I'm a news junkie, always have been brought up that at the end of the day, you know, before or after dinner, you watch the news. I try and not do that now, I'll be honest with you, particularly in the morning. I'm not a fan of now putting on the news before I start my day because the stories and the things that you can hear can really affect you for the rest of the day. And you know, we've never lived in a time where within 2,000 miles of my front door a war's going on. You know, we've got so many reasons why. We've got 2 food banks in our town. We've got all sorts of situations where we're being told that people are really struggling. And it's all quite depressing. And at the same time, we're meant to show up, run a business, in my case, support multiple people's ability to pay their mortgages, and the same for you guys in your case. And that's pressure, isn't it? And it's stress. And if we believed everything we saw on the news, it could make us all in a lot more of a state than we need to be. So let's first of all talk about this idea of a recession. So as you know, we are told on the news and the media that 2023 will bring a recession. And it's possible that it will. October's GDP figures suggested a slight increases. November's did the same. And December's, well, we'll wait and see. But if December's did go back, then that still wouldn't equate for a recession because a recession has to be 3 months of reverse activity, should we say. So not just one. Saying that, it is still quite possible that we will see a recession in 2023. And we have been through a recession before in the not too distant past. 2008, 2009, we were in recession. So what things happen in a recession? Unemployment increases. That's one of the situations we find ourselves in at the moment, where we have very low unemployment. And that means that a lot of people aren't active in the labour market, and they're not necessarily seeking work. Job vacancies would reduce. Well, at the moment, job vacancies are incredibly high and people cannot find people to fill vacancies. Costs increase during a recession. Inflation goes up, interest rates go up, and all of that interesting stuff. More millionaires are made, apparently, during recessions. I got this quote off the internet. During the Great Depression in the United States, more millionaires were made than any other era of US history. So some people succeed in a recession. And I wonder whether these are the people that say, yeah, that's their economy, that's the economy, but I'm going to focus on my economy. And I really think that's going to be important for us as childcare for you as childcare settings and us as businesses in the UK to almost say, I'm not going to participate in that misery and negativity and all that stuff. I'm going to focus on what I can control. And remember this week, Tina's spoken to us about categories of control. I'm going to focus on what I can control, and I cannot control what is going to, be decisions made by the Chancellor in relation to budgets and to funding and to, what's going to happen with teachers' offers and whether the rail unions will get what they want and what will happen with the nurses. I can't control any of that. What I can control is my own economy, and that's what I'm going to focus on and do. Negativity, I would say, breeds more negativity, and I'm sure you've all got examples of this in your workplaces. And for me, it's a real worry, because once we start having situations where we are negative, you can find it's almost like a contagion, isn't it? So if positivity breeds positivity, that's what you want to be aiming for. Because when you're negative, you can quickly become unproductive. And what I mean by that is, once you start feeling like you're rubbish, and clearly, it's not going to be a good day. Guess what? It isn't. So if you start your mindset with positivity, it is going to be a great day. As Rebecca said to us last night, the children who bring chaos because they are children, can do and can change how we feel about the next 9-10 hours. And if you embrace that and you run with it, you're far less likely to be dragged down with the negativity that would otherwise overcome you. And if we are negative and if we become negative, my worry is we start to become unproductive. And then when we're unproductive, we start to make mistakes and we start to become dysfunctional. So an unproductive team might well therefore be a team that discards quality, that doesn't worry about following procedures, that doesn't adhere to policies that you have, that forgets, and again, forgive me, which of our masterclasses talked about this week, but forgets what we stand for, forgets what our values are, does something that's completely opposite of what you would want them to do, because they've become dysfunctional. The team has become dysfunctional because of this negativity, this unproductive. Morale, or morals, as often people type it, they fall through the floor, don't they? When staff morale falls through the floor, nobody wants to be there. Nobody bothers about, that they've just marked the wall. Nobody goes and gets a bit of GIF or whatever it's called these days. SIF, showing my age there, aren't I? A bit of GIF and gets rid of it. Nobody worries about that because morale's so low. Milk's run out. Oh, well, we won't bother mentioning that. Or, nobody will care. If we've broken this, we'll just put the broken thing back where we found it. We won't tell anybody. Nobody comes to work when morale's low. Your absenteeism goes up. Your lateness goes up. Lateness is often a sign that absenteeism will follow, trust me. So people start coming into work late, then they stop coming into work at all. There is good news. I don't know if any of you have heard of Karen's Diner. They're recruiting in Wales, I read today. Some of my clients in the UK could probably provide them with wonderful recruits for their restaurants. I do wonder what happens in a Karen's Diner when they ring HR, like Redwing. Is it like, hello, I wonder if you can help me. One of my staff, yes, they're far too happy. And they're too lovely with the customer. Could you help me performance manage them, please? It does amuse me, this idea of a Karen's Diner, and what is that all about? Why have we got that in 2023? But this is where some people are going to go. This is where, this is what's going to happen. People are going to, stop coming to work for your setting. And it could be good people. That's the other big fear. If you work in an environment where people are miserable, you're going to go, ooh, I think I'll go and work somewhere else. And the one thing I'd say to ourselves is, are we the ones who are setting the tone? Are we coming into work full of negativity? Or are we, as Jeanette would say, playing our playlist in the car and walking into our, song as if we're some boxer entering the ring? Do we do that so that we start the day off wanting to be there, wanting to make a difference to the children and families? Or have we got dragged down with the misery that's going on in the world? Plans. Want to talk to you about plans. Plans are so important. Plans are what keep you, secure. They really do. Plans, if you plan before tomorrow, if you say tonight, I'm going to plan what I'm going to do tomorrow, in my mind, when I do that, I sleep better tonight because I've made a plan. I might not achieve that plan, let's be honest, but I've done it before today is over. So this idea is that today isn't over until tomorrow is planned. And I really like that. But plans, particularly in a recession or in a challenging situation of 2023, plans need to be adaptable. So this idea, and that's why I like this slide so much, plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. You want the plan to not be so rigid that you can't respond. That's the key to this. A plan that is too rigid is going to not enable you to respond. And the key to this is to develop a strategy. And what we mean by that is no more winging it. So anybody who's on the call who has ever, and hands up, I am a signed up member of the Winging It Club. Yeah, I've been winging it for 19 years in May. But not this year. This year, I've just finished, Stuart and I have just finished 2 days of planning for our business. Never done that before, been a bit radical. But we've spent 2 days planning our life and the business for the next 12 months. Quite revolutionary for us. So we're not winging it anymore. We've developed a strategy. And this is what we were trying to make out last night, was that innovation is going to be incredibly important in the next 12 months. Improvising, well, that's not really for recessions, yeah? Improvising it, making it up as you go along is not really the sort of thing you're going to want for the next 12 months. Having a strategy, having plans, yeah, key thing, plans, not plan that, can adapt and change, but plans, having a strategy, being able to innovate in 2023 is going to be incredibly important, because your strategy has to be flexible, because you're going to need to be able to respond to whatever comes your way. Yeah. And you need to understand your options and where you want to do your strategy and your planning, what you want to focus on, what you want to disregard in order to make it a success. So by the end of this session, so I've already been talking for 17 minutes, we're good at this time management business. So in the next 43 minutes, by the end of this masterclass, I'm going to have shared with you some ideas of what you can do to manage the employment of others in what's going to be a difficult year. So here's some common issues that businesses experience during recession. First of all, they lose their customers. And you can lose customers because in childcare, people decide that childcare is not for them, no longer needed. Some people might cut their hours or not work at all, or they might decide to, they may have lost their job. And so whilst they're not working, they don't need childcare. They may decide to take, somebody in the family may decide to take over the childcare. There can be lots of reasons why you might lose customers. You can have a situation where the second one happens, where staff are asking you for more hours at the same time that you've lost customers. So staff are asking, well, look, we are being impacted by cost of living crisis, big pressures on our budgets. We would like to work more hours. And that's great if you've got more hours to give them, not so great if you do not have more hours to give somebody. Again, big point I would make here from an employment perspective is, we can spend a lot of time speaking to people about, I'm really struggling to recruit, I can't find new people. Have you actually asked your existing people if they want to increase their hours? And I know it really sounds like illogical, but some people go to hire a new starter before they go to their existing workforce and either look to reshuffle the pack or to invite somebody who's not quite full-time or not working full-time hours to increase their hours. And this should be our first port of call. Go to what you've got and see if that will expand before you do what's harder, which is to go outside of your own economy, go into the economy and try and fish for a new starter out there. So you're much better asking your existing team if they would like to help you out, because you might be looking for help that isn't permanent. You might be looking for help for a short-term solution, and the outside economy may not be the best place to find your short-term solution. The existing workforce might be. So always bear that in mind. Another thing that happens in a recession is you get pressures on pay offers. So people will want to have the best hourly rates they can get, and I do remember saying it some years ago, people will leave for 10p an hour more. Well, they really will. They really will. And it is a reality. It was probably a throwaway joke at the time. It is a reality. People will leave a job for 10p an hour more. And as we'll talk later, the idea that you could lose somebody for such a small amount of money per hour may be illogical when it comes to the cost of a new starter. So having a strategy that will try to retain and keep people with you, so that you don't have to look elsewhere to hire new people, is going to be important. And another common issue of that businesses experience during recession is redundancies. And you can have redundancies for a multitude of reasons. You can have a redundancy because a place of work closes, which does and will happen in the next 12 months. Some businesses won't make it. If a childcare setting near you was to close, then that will provide you with the labour pool that you've been struggling to find, a ready-made labour pool, maybe that sat there because someone else didn't make it. It's sad but true, but somebody will take advantage of what is a sad situation and move in on those staff members. Some of them might decide not to work in childcare anymore. Some of them might decide that they don't want to work for you. Again, not a problem. But that does create opportunity. With everything that's sad, there is an opportunity. And redundancies can also happen because people decide to shrink the number of people they employ. So they may have had additional people in good times, and now they have a think about, do they need all of the posts that they currently have? Could they save some money by losing some posts? And this is where we end up in a situation where either workforce shrinks. So say you employ, let's just think say you employ 4 early years practitioners, and you decide you only want 2, then that is the pool of early years practitioners, and you apply selection criteria to the pool to discover which of the 2 will be at high risk of redundancy, and then ultimately those 2 people will leave your organisation. So that can happen, or you can have a situation where a role disappears. And I always pick on health and safety officers, but in that situation, you've got lots of different roles in the organisation. One of them's a health and safety officer. You decide you don't need that role going forward. So it's a pool of 1 because you only employ 1. And so you consult with that person about the fact that their role has been identified at risk of redundancy. You go through all the process, and eventually that person, if you can't find anything else for them, would be made redundant. So redundancies are very common. Loss of customers are very common. Requests for hours and more staff is very common, and pressure on pay offers. People seeming to want to receive a pay rise that you're thinking, wow. The government has given your staff a pay rise. It's called national minimum wage going up. And you have got a choice as to whether you then match that level. I think it's 9.7%, isn't it, off the top of my head? You match that percentage increase with the other staff and other roles who aren't on the national minimum wage within your setting. You have a choice. There is no hard and fast rules. If somebody goes at 9.7% in one role, doesn't mean say you have to introduce someone else the same percentage increase. But what happens if you don't is you end up in this discrepancy where, as far as the employee is concerned, the gap, the differential, has reduced. So their preparedness to work for an employer where the differential is reduced is down to them. They may have to make that choice. Do I want to stay where I am, or do I want to go somewhere else? What do we expect to see in this recession? And as I say, it's all if there is a recession, but what do we expect to see in the next 12 months, given all that we know that's going on? So we again have cost of living crisis, we have high inflation, we have high interest rates, we've had a horrific situation with the pensions. I hope you haven't done what we've done the last recently and looked at our pensions and seen how they've been hit. It's not a pleasant view, I can tell you that. But yeah, people who are reliant on fixed incomes are looking at other options. So there are 55-year-olds who have took a decision after the pandemic, around the time of the pandemic, to live a more simple lifestyle. And for many people, it was a question of cashing in their pensions and not working full time anymore. And there will be a percentage of these people, we call them the 55 plus gang, that want to return to the employment market. And this isn't a gang that you will necessarily find hanging out, on Indeed, shall we say. Yeah, they will be people for whom you know them in the community. Your parents know them in the community. Your teachers know of them. They will be people for whom they would like to work, but they don't want to necessarily consider themselves a job seeker. And that means we just have to work that a little bit harder to attract them into our settings. Subject of a different evening, but you'll get me back talking about recruitment and how to win at recruitment, I don't doubt. So pressures on pay scales, that's another thing we expect to see. We expect to see people asking for, and expecting to receive decent wage rises in the next 12 months. And I would never begrudge anybody in childcare for the money they want to receive. I don't think any of us would, but unfortunately, money can only go so far and you can't always do what you want to do. That's the reality. And I think we will see people sort of in certain roles, almost sort of, being ambitious, shall we say, with their expectations. So, yeah, I'd like to join you. Oh, okay. Well, I was looking for a bit more. And, I see. Right. Okay. Well, I was, I've got an offer for, £5,000 more than that. Can we meet in the middle? And what I want to say to you tonight is, don't necessarily judge that, given that we're in these peculiar times, because I don't think asking is necessarily the problem. The problem comes when they can't handle the answer. Yeah. So I suppose I assimilate it often to flexible working requests and the fact that you can ask for, and I could ask Stuart, I could say, oh, I'd quite like a sports car. Now he would say no. And he's always been of a position of no, but I can ask, that's just the way it is. I can ask, and your staff can ask, and your prospective staff can ask, but they have to handle it if it's a no. And you have to not judge them. And it's hard not to, for being cheeky enough to ask. Yeah, because it's just the way it is at the minute. It's just the way it is. So please don't take it personal. I think there will be requests for additional hours. I think people will ask, what can you do? And it will be through a flexible working request. So remember, flexible working requests don't have to be to reduce your hours. They can be to increase your hours. There's nothing in the regulation that says it has to reduce. People will ask for additional hours. People will be looking to work additional hours. Some of the people you've had on casual and bank contracts, if you don't wait to speak to them, they will be speaking to other people to secure part-time hours now, because being bank and casual isn't necessarily what it was before we're in this 2023 when we've got these challenges going on. So if you've got good people for whom you speak to and you haven't spoke to for a while and you want to secure them on a part-time contract, you need to go out and do that now. If you've got people that you want to work with you in the summer, don't wait until the summer to approach them and say, do you want to work for me this summer? Secure them now. Do that thing where you're saying, right, I want you and I want you for these weeks. I'm going to pay you this hourly rate. And this is going to be how it's going to work. And I'm going to see you on that day. Have a lovely time. And I'll see you later. You need to be doing that. That's part of the strategy and the planning, because otherwise they'll go somewhere else, because inaction is still an action. Yeah. Not doing anything is still a response. So you do need to do that. You need to go out and secure those people. And parents will want to increase their hours, and they'll be doing their jobs. I mean, lots of people work for secure jobs. Lots of people work in sectors where, you know, they are working more hours. You think of some of the sectors that are having to respond to all that's going on. You know, more people are traveling this year than ever before. So sectors that support airports and airlines, they're increasing their hours. You know, councils are still hiring. There's initiatives, there's funding, there's lots of reasons why these people are getting, you know, more hours and more jobs. They've got secure jobs, and the jobs are only getting more secure. They'll be coming back to their childcare providers and saying, I need to increase my childcare. You know, other people, you know, might be not in a position to help them in the way they were because they've gone back to work. As I said, you know, you could easily have a 55-year-old grandma, couldn't you? Gosh, what a horrible thought. But you could, couldn't you? Easily. They're going back to work, not providing the childcare. Yeah. How old was my mum when James was born? No, she was 60. Yeah, she was 62. No, she wasn't 55. She was 62. But she made it very clear she was not going to look after James, not like Jackie Dawes. No, no, no. Some parents will be reducing their childcare. And that's the truth. Some people, as we said at the outset, will reduce their childcare. They will not be looking to pay an out-school club to have their child. They'll be looking for something else that works, that doesn't have that outlay. And that's absolutely fine. Some people in the next 12 months will quit employment. Again, that's fine. We can't stop this happening. We've got to be able to respond to what's happening. So, got a question here. Where do you draw the line between being friends and being friendly with staff? That's a really good question. Well, as a manager, it's hard. Yeah, as a manager, you know, if you are not the owner of the childcare setting, but you are the manager, and you are going into a room one day to cover, and the next day you're going and talking to that room about standards and expectations and what have you. It's hard. It's hard because you are basically getting, you know, a boss telling you one thing and you've got the staff telling you something else, and you could easily be the one in the middle. Yeah, very, very easily to be hard. And so therefore, when you form connections with the team that you've worked with, and then you've got to manage them, it can be difficult to not feel like you're managing your friends. Best tip to any manager I was ever given was be friendly, not friends. Yeah, easy to do, like easy to say, difficult to do. For an owner, it's not an option to be friends with your staff. It's essential that you are friendly, not friends, which might mean things in practice like you don't get to go to the staff socials. You don't get to, well, not necessarily all of them. You might go to the one at Christmas, but you don't go to the other 6 events that happen through the year. You don't get to gossip with the staff in the staff room, because to do so would give the impression that you were friends and potentially friends that are doing something they shouldn't be doing, which then as an owner you've got to manage and lead through the consequence of it. So easy to say, difficult to do. Drawing the lines is, you know, with friends I have sympathy. When I'm being friendly, I have empathy. That's how I make a distinction. Yeah. So for my friends, I will wait up at night worrying about their situation because I have total sympathy. I don't just understand, I agree. With somebody I'm friendly with, I have empathy, but I won't be losing sleep over you. If that makes sense. Good question. Good question. I hope that answered your question. So if you've got any questions, chuck them in the box and we will get to them. So what can you do to attract new starters? Well, here's some ideas. You could offer discounted childcare. Remember, from a HR, from an employment perspective, if you're going to offer subsidies to your childcare, it's got to be something that everyone can access. That's, you know, kind of the rules. You can't sort of discriminate and only give it to some and not to others. So it's in general terms, it's got to be something that's available to everybody. And, you know, goes without saying, you can't sort of start taking the cost of the childcare from somebody before they get paid their wages, because that's salary sacrifice, and you can't do that if it would take any pay below the national minimum wage. So that can get very icky, so you don't do that. You have to pay their bills as a parent would do, and they have to sign terms and conditions as a parent would do. So if they leave, you won't be able to reclaim it from their wages because you've provided the childcare, and so therefore that's not allowed. At the end of the day, only provide subsidised childcare if you know your numbers. Yeah, and this is really what Jane was making you think about on Monday, is you have to know the numbers in order to know what you can afford to do. If you do not know your margins, if you do not know what it costs you per hour, if you don't know things like, and here's a good one to work out what your average customer value is. I know they're not customers, I know they're parents, but you know, APV then. Work out what your average parent value is. And you'll be quite surprised. And you'll be even more surprised when you then work out what your average lifetime value of a customer, of a child is. You work out that one, because if you work out the average number of years a child stays with you, what they earn with you, what they spend with you in a year, or they purchase from you in a year, they will then spend for that average number of years that they stay with you. So this then makes it, well, I know my numbers. These things you have to know. You have to know in order to be able to take care of the employment side of things, because if you're not understanding the business side of things, you can't make decisions on the employment side of things. That's the point I'm trying to make. One of the things you could do to attract new starters, which again, you know, other sectors in society can't or won't offer, and that's term time only working. There are a lot of people for whom the sector is attractive because you operate term time only. Childcare operating term time only in many cases is an attraction. So if you can, and it fits your business model, and it must be that way around, don't do it just because the only person available work term time only. Do it because it fits the business model for that post to be term time only. If you do it the other way around, you'll resent it, is my idea. Is what I'm trying to say. You've got to do it because the business needs it, not because that's the only person available. Don't make those kinds of compromises on your own needs. So term time only, flexible employment, this idea of variable hours. You might work certain hours in the summer holidays and certain hours in the term time. This is getting increasingly popular. We're speaking to an increasing number of clients who want to have new contracts for employment raised because they will want people to work all year round, but they are flexible about summer working. They are understanding that people might want to work less hours, and it fits their business model for them to do so. So yeah, we can be very creative. And as Rebecca said last night, it's all about innovation. This is what's going to see us through this year, being innovative and thinking, right, how can we solve that? How can we address that? What are our options from an employment perspective? What laws do we have to be aware of? What's the way to handle this from a HR situation? That's where we're coming from tonight. And I'd say the big thing that you can offer that and we see it all the time, don't we? You see, people posting Aldi, don't they? Big standing joke in my office, Aldi. But the idea that and Lidl, but we have the standing thing that they pay a really good hourly rate at Aldi, and I don't know what it is, but I think it's pushing 13 quid an hour. It's a really good hourly rate for somebody who works in a checkout. But let's bear that in mind. You work at Aldi on the checkout, you could be rostered between Monday and Sunday. You could be working in the evening, you could be working at weekends, you could be working in the day. That's retail. Yeah, leisure, hospitality, retail. You will not work daylight hours, and you will not work Monday to Friday, but you will in childcare between 8 and 6, Monday to Friday. Yes, you might be rotated, but will you be rotated at 10 o'clock on a Friday night? No, you'll be at home. Will you be asked to go in on a Sunday morning? No, you'll be at home. And that can make a difference for people who know whether they can take that role or they can't. They might aspire to that hourly rate, but they can't do those hours. They don't want to do those hours. And more of us are being told, protect and maintain our work-life balance, think about our mental health. They're not going to want to do that and sacrifice and make the sacrifices that's going to come with that just to earn that extra hourly rate. So you can offer that. Make sure you brag about it. So in summary, if you expect everyone to not want childcare and not be prepared to pay for childcare, you're going to be wrong in the next 12 months. People have got money still. We proved that at lunchtime today. Went to a new cafe bar that's opened, absolutely rammed on a Friday lunchtime. There wasn't, they do that thing on the menu where they don't put £8.50, they just put 8.5. Bugs me. But it was posh, pretty posh. Rammed, absolutely rammed on a Friday lunchtime. People have got money. People will go and spend money on things they want. So childcare isn't just something you want. Going to the cafe and having an Americano and a tea cake, is something I wanted. Didn't get a tea cake. Stuart got a tea cake. I got the Americano. But going and sitting there is something I wanted. I did not need it. Got a perfectly good kettle in here. Yeah. But I wanted it. Childcare is what we want and we need. Just think about that for a minute. When I chose childcare for James 19 years ago, I wanted him to have childcare. I wanted him to go to a day nursery. I really wanted him to have that experience of being around other children before he went to school, because he was no child. I did not want him to be the child that didn't know how to take turns, that didn't know how to play nicely, who didn't know how to make friends. That was so important to me. And that's why I chose a day nursery. And then when I extended his need for care, childcare, I chose childminder. So we had a desire for education of James. We wanted him to have that experience. We needed it because I needed to go and do some work. I couldn't be, on maternity leave or not working for very long. I needed to earn some money for our household. So I wanted it and I needed it. And the two coming together should give you, everyone who's in childcare and day nurseries and preschools that are watching this on the actual, watching it on the replay, you want and you need childcare. And if you're in that sector, you are wanted and needed. You are therefore in that fabulous position where, places like the cafe, Tina's gone, Redditch has gone up market since I left. We're at Redditch, love. I'm in Swansea this week. But yeah, at this end of the week. But Swansea, you've got everything in Swansea, but you've got places at 0.8, 0.5 on a menu. You probably got that in Redditch as well, but I just wouldn't know where. You've got something you want and you need. You've got to really sort of be secure in that. This sort of organisation, this sort of business, you could do really well in the next 12 months, no matter what we hear in the news, no matter what happens with the economy. If somebody else, as I think one of the other speakers said, I think it was Ben, somebody closing their setting could be an opportunity for you to take over the running of that setting, if that's part of your strategy for 2023. Respond, not react. Because if you're going to take over another setting in 2023, you need to have given thought to how you're going to do that, so that you can respond to the opportunity when it comes past you, when it comes in your line of sight. So measures to save some money. You could extend the number of shutdowns you have in a year. This is quite a good tip, actually. If you want to save some of your costs, one of the ways you can do that is to have more shutdowns. So what I mean by shutdown is a period of fixed holiday that you say to the parents and to the staff, you will be using a week of your leave for this shutdown, often in August. I don't know why, but they are often in August. And what the nursery is doing, and it's often nurseries that do it, is to say, whilst we are an all year round setting, we will be closed for this week, and we will be asking all of the staff to take a week's annual leave in this week. And it's to ensure, obviously, and the week, it used to be the week before the bank holiday was quite popular. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but a week closure in August is popular. And it does two things. It means that everybody taking the holiday at the same time means that you do not have to cover the holidays. And there's nothing worse than giving somebody holiday and then having to bring in agency or other higher expensive hourly rates to cover a holiday. One of the reasons why many small businesses struggle with holiday and being generous with holiday. So you don't want to be doing that. That doesn't happen if you've got a shutdown. You won't be doing any consumable ordering for that week. So you won't be having, any food ordered. You won't be using any resources that week. So you will save money by not trading that week, put it that way. And that's a way to reduce costs. I mean, if you go too far the other way and you have nothing but shutdowns, and nobody gets any floating holiday, then what you do get is people saying, well, stuff this, I'm going to go sick for the day because I would have took a half-day holiday, but they don't offer it me. Well, my holidays are fixed, so I'll show them, I'll take a full day off. So it can go the other way, but actually having shutdowns is a good idea to save money. Excuse me. Not offering extra holidays is another way in which you can reduce the expenditure. So if you have a holiday in your contract in your holiday even, holiday in your contract that says that you pay 5.6 weeks, including bank and public. I don't know why I always get a cough when I start talking. Cough, to talk for too long, that's what it is. If that's what's in your contract, 5.6 weeks, including bank and public holidays, you do not have to increase holiday entitlement when the government decides to announce that we're having an additional bank holiday, because what you can do is say to your staff that you will have to allocate another one of your annual leave days for the holiday that's coming up that we hadn't, the bank holiday that we've now got that we're going to be closed. So you can do that if you've got a contract that says 5.6 weeks, including bank and public holidays. So if you're thinking of contracts in the future, and we've had quite a few years where we've had additional bank holidays. We had, not so long ago, we had one for the Queen Mother. We've had obviously 2 last year for the Queen. We had her Jubilee and obviously sadly her funeral. We're going to have this year one for the coronation. I think we had one for Kate's and William's wedding as well, didn't we? So it's been quite a few years where we've had these additional bank holidays. So if this seems to be sort of a response that the nation has, then that's not going to change. So in the future, you might want to convert your current position of 20 plus 8, 20 plus 9, or whatever it is you say in your contracts, to a week's where you say it's inclusive, to give you that flexibility and option. And it doesn't stop you saying we're going to gift everybody an extra day's holiday. It doesn't stop that, it just gives you the option. Yeah. So, it's absolutely put it back into your control rather than taken off your control. And this is what I mean about controlling what you can control. Consider training options that can be shared. Another way to measure to save money with employment costs is to look for ways in which you can train one person, then cascade the training. That can be a real, not just a cost-saving measure, but a real motivator. It's great because you're delegating. Remember all the things that we were talking about last night with Rebecca. You're delegating the responsibility to go and learn something and then pass that learning on. People love that, can do wonders for morale and motivation to feel that you've been that empowered to be the person who then shows other people how to do something. So look at those options as well. Can't be done for all training, totally understand that, but can be done for many, or that are more flexible, training that doesn't require travel expenses, or training time to be taken out for then someone to be replaced with additional so cover's not required. That sort of thing can reduce your costs. Relaxing your uniform policy. I mean, this is probably more of an, we are in a bit of dire straits situation, but I wanted to include it in the slides. But relaxing your uniform policy by having a situation where people are just asked to make good decisions about what they wear to work, I think is probably the best way of describing it. As we would say in our office, nothing that embarrasses you or others, or me or others, would be a good uniform choice. But again, it stops the cost of the uniform. Yes, there's a downside is you haven't got the branding when someone's out and about in the community promoting your setting. But again, it can save you costs. Varying terms and conditions. Again, HR people can help you with that if you need any assistance, but removing certain benefits, stopping certain schemes, bonuses, rewards, they can all save money. And reevaluating roles. So, your role might be nice to have, but it's not essential. Somebody might well have been given additional hours And now, because you're quieter, what you need to do is to stop paying those additional hours and renegotiate with them, because you're going to want them to do that work in the hours they previously had but didn't have the time because they were so busy. You're going to want to do that work in those hours. So reevaluating roles is what we call that, and giving you, nice to have, but not giving you what they needed to give in the past, they need to give you going forward. Now, when you're in a bit of a pickle, and there's two sorts of pickles. There's permanent pickle, like, you know, we need to do something and we need to fix something. And then there's temporary pickle where you've got a situation where you don't know how long this situation is going to last. And I wanted to just talk to you about that for a few minutes. So, you know, if you find yourself in a situation where you've got more staff than you need on a particular day. So say you had a situation where sorry, I can hear that, where you've got more staff in than you need, you might want to lay some of your staff off. Now, lay off and short-time working, so lost, you need to have an understanding of how that works. And you need to make sure that you've understood this in advance of needing to use it, because again, you can't react, you have to respond. So with layoff and short-time working, if you've got a month's service with your employer, you could be eligible for what's called a statutory guarantee payment. And this is £31 only if you earn more than £31. So if you only earn £20 a day, your guarantee payment couldn't be more than £20. And £31 has to be paid no more than 5 times. Yeah. So you can have 5 days worth of statutory guarantee payment in a 3-month period. Once an employer has given you 5 days of statutory guarantee payment, so laid you off for 5 days, then the option could be for you to claim that you have been, if it carries on for 4 weeks and you've received statutory guarantee payment for 5 of those 4 weeks, you could be able to claim that you've been made redundant through layoff. So it's almost like, whereas redundancy happens to the person, to the post, not to the person, the person gets the right to claim redundancy once this has happened to them for 4 weeks. So there is a risk if you lay off people indefinitely. You know, I mean, I've seen people wait 12 weeks before they've claimed they've been made redundant, but they've been able to do it because it took more than 4 weeks. So it's something worth considering. £31 could mean that you can afford to carry on longer. So that could be what, you know, if you're trying to secure something else, or, you know, you're trying to put something else in place, but you need to buy yourself more time, that could be useful. If you need to be able to get yourself out of a pickle, that's one of the strategies. Another one is redundancy, but I do want to briefly say, don't forget last in, first out, LIFO. That doesn't exist anymore. Last in, first out was great until it wasn't. And when it became not, it means that service has to be one of many criteria used. So remember, we talked about if you had 4 early years practitioners and you only needed 2 of them, you'd apply selection criteria, and that would involve you know, probably 7 or 8 different criteria, and one of them might be length of service. But you can't just say, you're new, you're going. That's LIFO, and that's fraught with issues, largely around age discrimination, because there is considered to be a link between length of service and age, and therefore it's considered discriminatory to just say to somebody, you're new, you're going. Communicate. I mean, I cannot stress how, you know, when you're in a situation where things are a bit difficult, you've definitely got to keep communicating. What I want you to take away is, and what you want your staff to take away, is that it's not about working harder. It's about working, you know, better, you know, doing what we need to do and working better. So focusing your energy on improving customer service, getting your customers to absolutely love what you do, to then tell other people what you do. So can you ask for parents to give you testimonials? Can they do Google reviews? Can they give you, you know, words that you can use to promote to your other parents? Can they film a video clip of them saying how fantastic they think you are at this setting? You know, can they do a review on daynurseries.co.uk? Wherever it is you need them to be raving fans, can they do that for you? Focus on building that team, finding new parents, you know, making existing pet clients sticky, you know, offering you know, discounts for siblings if you can afford to, again, knowing your numbers, but, you know, making sure that you're doing all of those things, perhaps encouraging people to come to the setting to come back to the setting, doing email campaigns to people that you've shown round that you haven't had bookings from to see where they're at. Have they decided on somewhere else? Have they just not got round to booking it yet? All these strategies are really important. And we've got to ensure that obviously we motivate the team. And as I say, you're much better off keeping your existing team than you are looking to let people leave. Cost of recruitment is so high and only going to get higher. Temporary pickles, which I think might be one of the questions that somebody might have. Can you ask for people to put in temporary requests to reduce their hours? What's one of the strategies that I think is a really good one when you've got a temporary pickle? Can people be encouraged to put in requests? So who would like to reduce their hours for the next term? Who would like to reduce their hours for the next month? Would anybody like to take annual leave because I'm in the mood to authorize it? That getting annual leave out the way now could save you money later. So if your holiday year is January through to December, holiday that is taken in January, February and March might cost you less than holiday taken in April, May and June when the national minimum wage goes up. So if you've got people who are long-term sick, have you invited them again to take any annual leave in the next 3 months? And if you do so, will that then cost you less than if they took that later on in the year? You can always ask. You can say to somebody, would you like to take some annual leave that you've accrued? No problem there. Would anyone like to take an unpaid sabbatical? So, somebody wants to travel overseas, someone who says to you, if you're overstaffed, and I think one of you said you might be, no. Yeah, I would actually, Catherine. You've put at the bottom. It's asking staff if they want to reduce their hours. Yeah, I would ask people, because if you feel you're overstaffed, if that's your situation, you can ask, can't you? As I said, it's no different than saying to somebody, can I have a sports car? You're only asking. And you can ask people. If they say no, they say no. You have to, like I said earlier, it's not the action of asking, it's being able to handle when it's a no. You have to be able to handle if they say no, so as long as you're okay with that, do it. That's not a problem at all. But yeah, people will like to take unpaid sabbaticals. Some people, we've had problems with it where people go away and then they don't come back. But some people want to go and travel. They want to go overseas. They want to know that their employer endorses them to do that. Well, if that can then mean that you don't have their wage bill and that suits you, you can ask them and invite them to authorize it and say, I'll authorize 3 weeks of unpaid leave. You can go and do what you wanted to do and then come back to work for me. So yeah, having those questions, having those conversations when you've got temporary situations, when you've got more staff than you really want to pay wages for, can be really useful. Look for free and low cost ways of motivating people. So I always think flowers in rooms, motivate, but also is part of being cozy and natural and all that sort of thing. Thank you bags is a nice way, as long as you don't do it as as an alternative to that sort of personal gratitude. As long as it's a compliment to the fact they know that you're grateful for what they do, that can motivate people. It can be very low cost. You can put together bags very, very cheaply. Random acts of kindness, this idea that getting team members to talk to do things for each other or to say nice things. We're doing stuff around Valentine's, and I'm sure you are too, with this idea of kindness and looking out for each other and being writing down things that make us smile about everybody, on a piece of paper and sharing them. Encouraging parent feedback, having a wow board, asking your parents to give you those comments that you can pass on. Again, people are so busy, aren't they? So sort of blinkered of got to get through the door, got to drop off the child, got to do my day. Asking those parents, contacting them, saying nothing to worry about, because that's the first thing you have to say when you ring a parent. You have to say nothing to worry about. X child's name, insert child's name is fine. I was just wondering whether you could perhaps, give me a quote I could share with your key worker about how you feel about how he or she does what they do every day. And those sort of things can be brilliant to motivate people. Didn't cost you anything other than a phone call. You've asked for it, they gave you. Stress risk assessments can be something to consider. Again, no great cost to those. Wellbeing initiatives sometimes can cost, sometimes not. They can be wide and varied, and there's lots of information on the internet about those. EAPs, I'm a big believer in these, because what they cost for an employer to pay for is nothing compared to the value that an employee can take out. So it's like a money can't buy offer. And you know, if you want a quote for one of those, again, speak to anyone here at Redwing, and we'll organise for you to have a quote. I wouldn't be without it. I think they're great value for money, and the value is that they can offer you information about, you know, your caring responsibilities. I've just seen recently on ours how to choose a care home, loads of information to download, print off, questions to ask, great stuff. They offer one-to-one counselling on the telephone or by WhatsApp, not WhatsApp, online chat if you don't want to speak. So that's great, isn't it, for those times when you just really want to speak to somebody and you don't know who. They can talk about financial matters. They can talk about debt, you know, really well equipped. So a brilliant thing to have. Managing underperformance. This is now not the time to tolerate. Yeah. So if you've been tolerating rather than managing, if that's you, if I'm looking at you down the camera, 2023 is not a year for that. You need to address it, because there is waste in the fact that you are tolerating things. Yeah. And you don't want to be doing that, not at the risk of your business. And finally, do you have the right people on your bus? Now, I remember, this is a slide from a time when I was on the stage at the Day Nursery Owners Conference. I think you're probably talking 5 years ago, nearly fell off the stage. Nobody was helping me in the front row. And I think somebody sort of 3 or 4 rows back went, "You're going to fall off that stage, girl. You don't know where the edge is." But yeah, not my finest moment. But I remember being on stage at the Day Nursery Owners Conference with this slide and talking about your bus. Now, Jim Collins wrote the book, Good to Great, not Get Off Your Bus. And in Good to Great, he talks about the fact you have to have the right people on your bus and they have to be in the right seats. But the thing he talks about most is the fact that before you choose your direction, so where that bus is going to, you've got to get your bus right. So somebody might be on the bus, but in the wrong seat. How is that true for your setting? Have a think about that tonight. Have you got people who shouldn't be on your bus at all, that should get off at the next bus stop? Yeah, have a think about that. Because maybe at the next bus stop, somebody needs to get on your bus and they won't have a seat to sit on unless somebody got off. Yeah, think about that. You've got to, in order to move in the right direction, have the right people. The right person needs to be in the driver's seat. If you think about it, they need to be the one with the driving license to drive a bus, and they need to follow the map. They need to be capable of following the map. You might have somebody in your driving seat, in your driver's seat of your bus, who, you know, happy to drive the bus, no qualifications to drive buses, and no preparedness to look at a map as to where you're going. They're in the wrong seat. They need to be a passenger, not the driver. Does that make sense? Lots to think about with bus. Lots and lots to think about, but something to give some thought to. Any questions? You don't have to. You don't have to, Jane. If your contract says your holiday entitlement is X, including public and bank holidays, that means you do not have to increase it with the King's coronation. You can choose to, but you don't have to. If you say X number of days plus bank and public, you do have to increase it. If you offer a staff member to finish early and they mutually agree, would this best be documented? Oh, yes, yes, yes. We love documentation in HR. You know, it's the biggest joke that we write everything down because we don't trust anybody, but it's so, so true. So yeah, you would, somebody comes to you and says, I would like to finish early, and you go, yeah, that's absolutely fine. You would write to them and confirm that with effect from X, they are going to reduce, they are going to have unpaid leave each day, say to finish at 4 o'clock, not 5 o'clock, just make it up. And this will go on from this date until this date. And at this point, it will be reviewed. And you still remain a X number of hours a week contracted employee. But this will obviously affect your pay that you receive each month. You will only be paid for the hours worked, or you know, that sort of equivalent. You need to document it. You then, when you write your signature and your name, you then put a line underneath that says signed, and a bit of a space, and date and a bit of a space. And what you do is you print 2 copies off of the letter. So you do it on your letterhead, you give them the letter, you give them 2 copies, and you say, right, here's one for my records, and you sign it, and they sign it, and you then put it in the personnel file, and then they keep a letter for their records as well that you sign and they sign, and they've got a copy. So both parties can't in the future say, didn't know. Didn't know, what was that all about? I mean, I famously remember a case, and again, that involved a dog, didn't it? Somebody who had time off to go and walk the dog still then took the time off when the dog had passed away over Rainbow Bridge. No letter, no conversation, I'm afraid. So yeah. If I don't offer term time only contracts, where staff may like to take the summer off, yeah, unpaid leave, absolutely. Yeah, talk to them, sit down with them, Catherine. You know, talk to them now. Just as I said, you want to secure your bank and your casuals that come in every summer. Don't let them go somewhere else because you didn't have that conversation. You do need to, you know, talk to people now about, you know, if anyone wants a summer off, now's the time to come and ask me, and we can look to, you know, adjust your salaries, your wages, you know, accordingly. Yes, because they're not term time only contract, the impact is that you'll still be giving holiday based on their contracted hours rather than their actual hours. But you know, the week by week benefit will be there. So yeah, do it, document it and do it. Off the one-offs or spur of the moment. What if they want to go home early on a night? Again, you know, it's if you do it as a spur of the moment thing, I guess you might be saying to somebody, who wants to go early because look, we've gone down to one child. I suppose that's the situation you're describing. The person who's watching has said that. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you can't then whip out a piece of paper or a pre-printed letter for that purpose. But you could, you know, both sign the timesheet if they'd use timesheets to indicate that's what's happened. But yeah, ultimately, they've got to trust you that you're going to deduct the hours, and you've got to trust them. But if it's going to be something that's going to happen for a week or a month, then you would definitely want to document it. But yeah, the odd occasion. But again, you know, perhaps making sure you've been witnessed when you've asked them might be the best way, so they can't turn around and say, you know, I was put under pressure. It's one thing to walk into a room and say, it looks like we've got you know, very few children. Does anybody want to finish early and hopefully take some unpaid leave? Then to sort of say to people, does anybody want to go? And I tell you why, because if you say to somebody, does anybody want to go? The presumption would be, oh, well, I'll be paid then. So you'd be clear. And communication is all about clarity, isn't it? But it's that clarity of, you know, does anybody want to take some unpaid leave by leaving, you know, early this afternoon because we've clearly got not enough children to justify you all in. And then if that's been seen by other people, they can't then turn around and say, well, I didn't understand that I wouldn't get paid. Got a witness because someone else heard it. Yeah. But yeah, that's the best way forward. And to make sure it's all understood and agreed is the best way of doing it. You know, communicating at staff to staff in other ways that you are welcome for people to request to ask to leave early if that means they're going to take some unpaid leave. You know, now we are in this culture where, not this culture, we are in this situation where you might be able to honour that in a way that you weren't previously. Right, okie dokie. So you know where we are if you need us. If you're watching on the recording, do pop replay and any comments or questions that you have. We're leaving Operation Response Facebook group open. No plans to close it at this time. Obviously, can't say that won't change in the future, but we're leaving it open so that you can watch the replays. Have you found that useful this evening? Have you had any light bulbs? I know I've been able to ask that when I've been the sidekick to someone else. It's much easier to manage the comments than when you're doing it by yourself. But yeah, I mean, there's a lesson learned. Always have a sidekick, eh? Even Tonto, even the Lone Ranger had Tonto, wasn't it? That's the way it goes. But yeah, I'm glad you found it useful, and I'm glad that you've enjoyed Operation Respond. And for all the crazy ideas that I have, maybe this wasn't quite so crazy or quite so, not such a bad idea after all. Anyway, I'm going to now go and sort myself out with my takeaway, which is my treat, and wish you all a lovely evening. And thanks for joining me, and hope you found that useful. Bye.